Welcome everybody. Time is just going real by. We're on module 3 that we're calling Magnet Makeover. In today's module, we're looking at how to create a highly attractive magnet that's going to get you heard, manufacture celebrity, and bring in a flood of leads into your business. So, once you know your market, which is module number 1, and then you have mastered your message, which is module number 2, we now need a tool that basically takes portions of your message, which we are going to call your magnet, and then we're going to use that tool to deploy these portions of your message into the marketplace. And we do that in order to attract your A-grade client, or essentially your ideal client, or the people that we are really looking to attract into your business. And that is in fact why we call it a magnet, because the purpose of it here is to draw and attract the right people into your sales process or into your deal flow, however you want to look at it, and the type of kind of business that you have. Now, like I always like to do when we start, what are some of the risks that you might have if you don't have a good magnet? So if you don't have a good magnet, I'm going to say that there are a couple of risks that we are looking at. Risk number 1 is that you don't get heard. Because you see, your magnet is essentially your voice to the marketplace, right? It is the first point of contact, or it's your first impression, if you will, with a prospect. And so without this magnet, you don't really have a voice that's going out there. Or on the flip side, if you have just like a kind of magnet, like not a great magnet, number 1, not only are you misrepresenting yourself, but, and why don't we answer this in the question box? Like, what happens when someone makes a first bad impression to you? So like, let's say you meet someone for the first time and maybe they just kind of woke up on the wrong side of the bed and it wasn't cool and they just kind of left a really bad impression with you the first time. What does that do to you, and will you do business with them on the long run? Like, how do you, yeah, exactly. Karen says you stop listening. Absolutely. I mean, and anyone else, what is the first kind of thing that happens when you encounter somebody for the first time? And, you know, everybody says first impressions are the most important impression, which is true. Here's the reality of this. If you just have like a not so great magnet, which is what we're talking about today, again, you are misrepresenting yourself, which is not a great thing. But like most first bad impressions, essentially it's kind of like game over with you and your prospect. I mean, your first impression is almost your last opportunity to speak to these people or have an encounter with them. And so if you leave a bad impression, you're not going to get heard, and it's most likely game over. So that is something we definitely want to avoid. Number 2, nobody will know about you, right? I mean, obviously, if you don't get heard, then no one's going to know about you. So since this is your first point of contact, if you don't have a magnet, or more specifically, a good magnet, literally no one is ever going to hear about you. And if they don't ever hear about you, then, well, how are they going to do business with you? So obviously, this is something that we want to avoid. And thirdly, the risk that you have here is that you don't have any prospects. I mean, if they don't hear you, they don't know you. And if they don't know you, then obviously they won't want to do business with you. And then you essentially have 0 people in your pipeline of prospects. Another way to put it is, well, you have no potential business. And all this means is that your business, well, it's stalled. It's like that broken car that breaks down where you're trying to get to a destination, and if you don't have a good deal flow or a good amount of prospects in your pipeline, your business essentially stalls. Because the reality is the lifeline of any business is deal flow. And if you don't have deal flow, then you don't really have a business. And what we're talking about today with this magnet is what's going to allow you to have a constant deal flow in your pipeline. Now, in other words, some of the benefits of having a good magnet are the flip side of everything. So, for example, everyone will hear you, right? See, a good magnet is kind of like a featured news piece that you write about yourself, and then it's kind of like syndicated on all major media channels. So people will hear about you, and not only will they hear about you, but they'll have a great first impression of you before ever even meeting you. And that's important because if people already have a perception of you before they meet you, then that is a huge, huge thing, because it means that people are already know, liking, and trusting you even before they begin to do business with you. Now, of course, if they hear you and everyone hears you, the second thing that happens is, well, you begin to create celebrity in your marketplace. Just like that featured news piece that we talked about being syndicated on all major media news channels, what tends to happen if that ever happens to you is that it starts to create a buzz, right? People begin to recognize you. They begin to recognize your name, and they begin to recognize your work, which really begins to make the marketing and the selling process for you so much easier. So if people now hear you and that begins to create celebrity for you, then obviously that means that you begin to engage in deal flow, right? When your target market knows about you and they're interacting with your magnet on a regular basis, then people will begin to enter your pipeline on a steady basis and on a steady flow, and then you will begin to have these flow of leads to nurture them through your sales pipeline. Or in other words of being stalled, instead, you're going to have movement in your business. And everybody knows that a constant flow of good people coming through your pipeline who've already kind of been predisposed to wanting to work with you, this is the lifeline and the core of any business. So just before we continue on here, I just want to ask you personally, because I want you to really make this home. What is the greatest reason that you want to have a good magnet? So go ahead and type that into the question box here, because it's one thing to hear about it from somebody else, and that's all fine and dandy and great, but more specifically than that, I want to make this and bring this really home to you. So we're going to look at a couple of things today. We're going to move kind of quickly, and then make sure you're taking some notes, and you're going to be able to bring this home with you, essentially, and work with it over the next couple of days. So first and foremost, if we're talking about a magnet, I want to ask the question, well, what is a magnet, right? What is this thing that we're talking about? Because, I mean, to some people, it could be just a loose term of what is a magnet. I want to really bring it home. So what it is, in short, your magnet is a bite-sized piece of value-added content that you offer to your marketplace. Now, I'm going to repeat that one more time just so you get it. Your magnet is a bite-sized piece of value-added content that you then offer to your marketplace. So, in other words, Gary Vaynerchuk wrote a book called Jab, 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 Right Hook. What I'm going to say is that your magnet is your jab. Now, the principle of jab, 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 right hook is this, that your jab is essentially your gives to the marketplace. Now, some people see marketing as boxing, and when they go out there, they try to right hook, right hook, right hook. In other words, sell, 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 and they never warm up anybody to, pre-sell them on anything. So the concept of jab, 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 right hook is before you ask anybody for anything, you should first give them something. And that would be your jab. You want to jab, 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 and after you jab a bunch of times, you can then right hook them. So in this case, your magnet is your jab, right? It's your give that you put out to the marketplace, that you provide value in the marketplace so that you can eventually set them up for the sale. So that's what your magnet is. Next question then is well, why is it important, right? And here's the reality. In today's digital world, you cannot always be selling. I mean, I think I heard it before, ABC, right? Always be closing, or ABS, always be selling. In today's world, you cannot do that. The market out there is jaded. And because they're jaded, they're used to being pitched over and over and over again to everybody who essentially wants to sell them. And so the more you come to the marketplace and you try to pitch them, the more you are just other noise in the marketplace, and essentially you're going to be looked badly upon. Nobody wants to be pitched to. And if all you do in your marketplace is pitch, then you're setting yourself up for looking really bad in front of your market. So what I've come up with is essentially the 2 golden rules of the new era of marketing. Because the reality is we are in a new era of marketing. No longer do the ways of old direct marketing work anymore. And so when we start marketing to the marketplace, everything that we do must be operated from under the umbrella of these 2 golden rules that I'm about to share with you right now, if you want to take your marketing to a whole nother level. Now, rule number 1, or golden rule number 1, is we must give before we take or ask. I'm going to repeat that one more time because it's of absolute importance. We must give before we take or ask. That's rule number one. And rule number two is that every step of our marketing process must be valuable in and of itself, or it must provide value. So even the actual sales process, and this is what some might call consultative selling or educational-based selling or educational-based marketing, every step of our marketing process where we're trying to take a prospect and turn them into a customer actually needs to be valuable in and of itself. Gone are the days where we just ask people to buy our stuff without providing value first. So, in other words, let me put it this way. The very act of promoting anything must enhance the lives of our prospects by moving them closer to the results that they desire. So you see yourself in every conversation that you have with somebody, in every aspect of marketing that you do, you need to keep on the forefront of your mind that I am looking to enhance this person's life by moving them closer to the result or the goal that they're looking for. Now, I know that sounds simple, and on the surface, everyone thinks, well, yeah, of course, that makes total sense. Why wouldn't I? But this really is a major writer-downer for your notes. And the reason why is because if I had to tell you, if there was like one thing that I had to isolate that was the single thing that was the largest contributor to my success in my business and the success of my clients, it would be an adherence to these two rules, right? Rule number one, always give before you ask. And rule number two, make everything that you do provide value to your prospect. Again, everything you do provide value to your prospect, because we are now, again, in this new era of marketing. We are paid, and this is a writer-downer too, we are paid in the direct proportion to the value that we bring to our marketplace. Okay, I'm going to say that one more time. We are paid in the direct proportion to the value that we bring to the marketplace and the insight that we bring to the marketplace that they can execute upon. So we have to live in this value-first economy. See, we as business owners, and I'm sorry if you're hearing this for the first time, but this is the reality. We as business owners have to come to the realization that people actually don't care about us or our business. The reality is people care about themselves, and everybody is looking for a result. And so the idea here then is if people don't care about us and our business, but they care about our result, then our approach to getting new customers can no longer be us-centric, where, hey, it's all about me and it's all about my business and it's all about everything that I'm doing and so on and so forth. It has to be about them. And so if we don't give value first, we will not only fail to get new customers, which is bad enough as it is, but we end up leaving a really bad taste in the mouths of our prospects. And in today's digital world, that stays with them a long, long time. In fact, in today's digital world, you cannot afford to let that happen because words and impressions are traveling at lightning speed these days. And if someone has something bad to say about you or a really bad experience that they had with you, they will put that up on the interwebs. And if they do, it's almost impossible to erase that. And so our mind space in all of the business that we do and in all of the advertising and marketing that we do needs to be customer centric, where we literally put the needs, the desires, the hopes, and the wants of our customers on the forefront of all we do. Or in other words, I like to say it this way, where service is our model, not sales. I'll say that again, where service is our model, not sales. Because when we do it this way, this creates a bunch of goodwill. We also stand out from our competitors because everybody else out there is not following these rules. And we start to build a better bond with our prospects who will begin to know, to like, and to trust us. And we all know that when someone knows, likes, and trusts us, then and only then will they potentially buy from us or do business with us. So the foundation of all things marketing today is understanding that we need to be a value-providing contributor to our marketplace rather than someone who's always asking or trying to take or trying to sell. If we then understand what the magnet is and we're understanding the importance of the magnet, the next question then is, well, what is the purpose of this magnet? So I get this idea of the magnet, I get this idea of what we need, I get this idea of what we're going for. Okay, no problem. Well, what is the purpose of this magnet? The first purpose is to get you heard. Right? The magnet is your give to the marketplace. It's that portion of your message that gets heard. And so I like to see the magnet as like a little soldier, if you will, that's kind of like going out there and initiating these virtual conversations with prospective clients without you ever having to lose yourself or go yourself. In other words, you can leverage this one-to-many idea. So see your magnet, picture this in your head. Your magnet is kind of like little messengers or homing pigeons or carrier birds or whatever you want to call it. Not literally go out into your marketplace and begin to initiate and have virtual conversations with your prospective clients. And the beauty of this is you can do this without ever having to do those conversations yourself, which obviously leverages the one-to-many model. Also, it begins to initiate the law of reciprocity by providing value. And the law of reciprocity says whatever you give out comes back to you. So if you go out there and you start providing value to the marketplace, the law of reciprocity will say that value comes back to you. So the first purpose of the magnet is to get you heard. The second purpose of the magnet is to generate a list for you. And the name of the game online is list building. See, most people will, and here's the reality of it, most people are not going to do business with you on their first exposure to you. I mean, I don't know about you, but if I have a first exposure to somebody, essentially they're going to need to warm me up a little bit before I commit to doing business with them. And so the reality out there online is that most people are not going to do business with you on their first exposure to you. So if you don't have a means to keep that conversation going and to continue to build value to that person, then you're essentially starting from scratch every single time you meet a new person. So what the magnet does then is instead you are offering this good information via the magnet in exchange for at least someone's email address, or sometimes a name. But essentially, you are exchanging a name or a name and an email address in order for you to trade that for your magnet. So when the person then gives you their name and their email address for your magnet, then this person now becomes on your quote-unquote list. And then you have the ability now to further nurture that lead. So you can send them an email every week, every 3 days, every couple of weeks. Essentially, you're going to provide more and more value to them. And then eventually, you're going to invite them to engage with you on some level. Now, I've heard it said, and these are for people who are really good with their email list, that a list is worth up to $10 a name per month for the lifetime of that list. And so think about that. If you have 1,000 people or 6,000 people or 10,000 people on your email list, that is $10 a name per month that list is worth to you if you know how to nurture them properly. When we were at Ted's Mastermind, for example, the CEO of Mind Valley came on there and he said, look, the only thing that's important to me with the magnet is for me to generate a list. And their entire business is built around their list, which every time one of their products come out, they basically email their list, they tell them that a product is coming out, and people start to buy and engage with that. So the name of the game online is list building, and your magnet is what allows you to generate that list. And see now, so once it gets you heard, and then it generates a list, see now is that it builds authority. Now we're going to talk more about that in just a minute. But the idea is that a teacher is always perceived as an expert and as an authority, which positions you in the best possible light when you're ready to make that offer to them. For example, if you wanted to buy real estate training, would you prefer to buy that from some Joe Schmo that kind of lives on your block and has dabbled a little bit in real estate? Or would you want to maybe buy it from this guy, right? Donald Trump. Now, in that case, I would assume that you'd want it whether you liked him or not, or you liked his hair or whatever it be. Donald Trump has a level of authority in the real estate investing niche. And so building that authority allows him to demand the highest fees, allows him to get the most amount of business, allows him to get the best amount of deals. So keep in mind that your magnet does these three types of things. So now that we know what the magnet is, We also know the importance of it. Let's quickly talk about then what the purpose of it is. So here we're going to dive into the meat of today's training, and that's the 4 keys to creating the perfect magnet. Now, if you haven't been taking notes right now, this would probably be the best time to start taking them, because what you're going to take from this section of the training is what you're going to go back to home with and begin to craft your magnet if you don't already have one. So the 4 keys. Let's look at key number 1, and that is the structure. How do we structure our magnets? Okay? How do we structure our magnets? Well, first, we have to realize that we're always trying to give insight over information. Let me say that one more time. We're always trying to give insight over information. I talk about this over and over and over again. We realize that in today's day and age, information is kind of, everyone's overloaded with information. Everybody has so much information that they don't need, and they go over and over and over again. And it's like, oh man, I can get information anywhere. The reality is we don't want, in our marketplace doesn't want more information. What they want is insight. And insight essentially is how to take information and make it applicable to someone so that they can begin to see an immediate result. So keep in mind that all of our magnets can't just be information, they need to be insightful. Now, here are 4 things that I call my SAGE principle that every magnet must be. Number 1, it must be short. Again, it must be short. See, we live in an era right now where it's a digital era of micro content, right? People are no longer consuming large sums of content in one sitting. It's very rare that you could put up an hour-and-a-half video in front of somebody who doesn't know you at all and expect them to sit through that hour-and-a-half video. It just doesn't work anymore. You know, Twitter has restricted tweets to 180 characters. YouTube has restrictions around 10-minute videos for the most part. So the idea is that when we put out content into the marketplace, that the content itself needs to be short. And I like to follow this rule, that the consumption time should fall between 4 and 7 minutes. So if they're watching a video, the video should be between 4 and 7 minutes, maybe closer to 4. If they're reading content, then the content should be able to be read through and consumed within 4 to 7 minutes. So first point, all of our magnets need to be short. Number 2, all of our magnets need to be highly actionable, right? People do not want information anymore. What they do want is insight. See, knowledge is abundant, and people are now confused and they are overwhelmed with, oh my gosh, I have so many options, I have so much information, I just don't know what to do. I can hop on the internet and read tons and tons and tons of things about the same issue. So, your content needs to be highly actionable with insight that can be implemented immediately. So someone can read the piece of insight, read the piece of content, they can apply what you're talking about immediately into their life or business and see an immediate result. Point number 3 is that it needs to get them closer to their goal. Now, it doesn't need to get them all the way to their goal, but it does need to get them a few steps closer to their goal. See, the point of the magnet is to show them that you can help them get closer to their goals. Now, again, you don't want to overwhelm them with too many steps. But if your magnet can help them just get even 1 step closer of their desired outcome, then you are in business. And it's very important to do that. Now, fourthly, it's easy enough for a noob, or as I call a newbie. The last thing you want your magnet to do is have the person feel like more confused about the topic at hand, to feel totally overwhelmed, and they're like, oh my God, there's just so much information, I just don't know what to do. When it comes to the magnet, the action or the implementation steps need to be easy enough that if you went over to a 12-year-old and you handed it over to them, they could understand it and they can apply it without any issue. Okay? So we want to make you appear as though you're the expert teacher. But what this does also is that if they can implement it and see an action right away, and it's very simple to do, it builds confidence in your prospect, which gets them closer towards their goal. Now, the best example I like to give in this, and I use it all the time, is this. Let's say you're in the niche of teaching someone how to play rock songs on their guitar. A perfect magnet for this would be maybe a 3 to 4 minute video that teaches somebody how to play the F chord. Okay? Because an F chord is kind of a complicated chord. It's used in a lot of rock songs. But if you could show them how to play the F chord, that person will feel like they're getting one step closer to their goal. And so think about now in your business, what are the problems that I want to solve, and what are the magnets that I could throw out there that would make it easy for my client to get one step closer to their goal. So let me just try something here. I'm going to be doing a little bit of doodling and drawing today. How I want you to understand this is almost see this as a box with quadrants in them. Okay? And this is, again, just the structure of how you want to set it up. So remember, we got SAGE. S, A, G, and E. Right? So what does this stand for? Remember, S is for short. Okay? A is for actionable. G is for goal, right? It has to get them one step closer to their goal. And E stands for easy, or easy enough for a 12-year-old to do it here. So the easiest way to remember your structure here, or your structure, is to see these quadrants and name it SAGE, right? S-A-G-E, it needs to be short, 4 to 7 minutes of consumption. It needs to be actionable, that someone can take that information and apply it immediately. It will, G, get the prospect a little bit closer to their goal. And then E, it's easy to implement. And these are all even here. So you need to put even weight on all four when you're executing with your client. So we've now just covered how to structure it, which is super important. That was point or key number one, how to structure your magnet. Now, key point number two, let's look at what does your magnet do, or what does it need to accomplish? Now remember, your magnet provides small, immediate solutions to your target market's main problem. So let me say that one more time so you get it. Your magnet provides small, immediate solutions to your target market's main problems. And we're going to do this with 3 different elements that every magnet needs to have. Element number 1 is that your magnet needs to educate, because educating builds authority. Your magnet should educate the prospect, empowering them with more actionable knowledge. See, I think like from the beginning of time, it rings true that he who teaches is an expert and is an authority. So whenever you educate somebody, there's something very interesting psychologically that happens. Psychologically, when you are educating someone, that equals authority in their mind. And so the more we educate, the more authority that we begin to have. See, the more we educate, the more authority we bring to the marketplace. And this is how we earn authority. See, there's people who go out there and claim authority for themselves. So they go out there and they're like, well, I'm the authority in the marketplace. I'm the expert here. Listen to me. Now, the reality is if you try to claim authority for yourself, no one is going to end up listening to you. But if we demonstrate authority by educating our prospects, then what happens is it's automatically assumed that we are an authority, and that when it's not self-imposed, but the client imposes that onto us, can never be taken away from us. See, every time you help someone get a result that they want through educating them, their natural response is essentially, well, thank you, what's next? And so what that means is that they appreciate what you've given them and they want more. And this is the ideal situation that you want to be in as an expert in your space. So first, your magnets need to educate. Next, your magnets need to engage, because engagement brings trust. So if education brings authority, then engagement brings trust. You know, I once heard someone say that to cause a transaction, the person interacting with you doesn't need to understand you, they need to feel like you understand them. I'll say that one more time because that's really important. In order to cause a transaction, the person that's interacting with you doesn't need to necessarily understand you. They need to feel like you understand them. They need to feel like as they're hearing you talk or as they're reading your and consuming your content, they almost need to sit there and think, wow, like this person wrote this just for me. Like they need to feel like you're speaking right to them. Now, in a live environment, that's easy because you can get feedback from people and you can engage and you can get people to raise their hands and you can get people to ask questions and that sort of thing. But how do you do that in a non-live environment? Well, what about if you started off your magnet by writing something or saying something like this? And I've done this before, but essentially something like this that says, hey, thank you so much for consuming this content. Of course, you wouldn't word it like that, but you would say something like, you know, I've spoken with over 50 of my best clients in the last 7 days, and I asked them what their top 3 biggest concerns were concerning X. And this is what they told me. And maybe you too are dealing with one or more of these, so I'd love to answer them. So in this case, even though it's not a dynamic magnet, like maybe it's a PDF report or something like that, and they're holding it in their hand, just by you saying that you've interacted with others and you've got their feedback, and then your potential client here feels like they are one of those people who are asking the same question, automatically they feel like they're engaging with you, and so it begins to build trust. Now, you know, when you're doing this, the goal is to allow them to feel like you are addressing them specifically. And as soon as you could do that in the mental mind of them, you have them hooked and you have them engaged. So again, quick review. First is to educate. Next is to engage. And the third piece that you need to include in here is that you need to inspire, because inspiration builds loyalty. See, oftentimes during an experience, the number one thing holding someone back from taking action with you is not necessarily that they don't trust you or they don't trust in your ability to provide a result for them. More often than not, what I've found is that they actually just don't trust themselves. See, they don't trust that they have the capability to carry it through to themselves. And so it's very important that in a lot of your communications that you inspire someone to help them know that and help them feel like they can do it on their own. And we do that by A, making it simple and easy, and B, by showing social proof of others who maybe were in a similar situation to them and they were able to overcome their fears and doubts and they were able to do it themselves. See, people buy from you when they know you, when they like you, and when they trust you. And your magnet then is kind of the first stage in allowing all of this to happen. Now, listen to me very carefully. If you can do these 3 things in your content, and not just in your magnet, but every piece of content you throw out there. So whether you're giving a live talk on stage, or you've written a book, or you've shot a video, or whatever it be, if you can do these 3 things, your prospects will A, love you, B, respect you, and C, they'll trust you. And if they love you and respect you, then they'll trust you. And if they trust you, then they'll buy from you. So as another model to kind of making this easier for you to remember, let me just kind of draw this out here. And I call this the triangle of trust. And in this case, remember here, you're looking to educate. You're looking to here engage. And here you're looking to inspire. And I'm calling this the triangle of trust. I apologize, it's a little hard to see that. But this is how you can always remember when you're developing any form of content, not just your magnet for that matter, but any piece of content, but especially your magnet here. This piece of content should include the triangle of trust, which includes educating, which includes engaging, and includes inspiring. Now, the next point of the 4 keys that we're looking at here is, well, what form does it take? right? Because magnets can be all sorts of forms. They can be white papers, they can be reports, they can be videos, they can be case studies, they can be books, they can be ebooks. In fact, they can be even physical books. I know a couple of my clients right now are offering actual print copy books as a lead magnet. For example, this is one of my clients who's offering a free plus shipping book. In fact, if you don't have this book, you should probably pick it up. It's called The Entrepreneur Solution. And he throws this out there, and it's basically you can have his book plus a bunch of bonuses, totally free of charge. You just cover the shipping and handling. And that is a great magnet that you can throw out to the marketplace. Now, what I've personally found that works absolutely phenomenal right now, and this is through countless test after test after test, and seeing what's really working in the marketplace and testing this type of magnet versus that type of magnet versus another type of magnet. I would say right now that the #1 top performing magnets, and you want to make note of this because you want to include it yourself, are what we'd call cheat sheets, blueprints, or templates. Again, cheat sheets, blueprints, or templates. I'm going to get into the reason of why this is kind of like super important, but just keep that in mind. These are kind of the top 3 things. In fact, let me draw you something else here. I just want to show you this. This will kind of help you make sense of deciding on your deliverable. So if we got like an XY axis here, and we're going at it like this, hopefully you can all see my XY axis. We're going to call this low desire. Up here, down here, we're going to call this high desire. And then on the left, we're going to say hard to consume. And on the right, we will say easy to consume. So let me see if I can just kind of switch this up with a different color so you can help understand it. So if we got this XY axis here, and on the top is high desire, on the bottom is low desire, on the left we got hard to consume, and on the right we got easy to consume. Let's start with kind of bottom left, like hard and low desire. Let's call this like a strat session. Hopefully you can see this. Strat session, right? Getting someone to come on the phone with you, like an enrollment call or a strategy session or a sales appointment or whatever it be. I mean, it's really hard to consume because someone needs to literally give like an hour of their time to get on the phone with you, and it's low desire because not everybody will want to get on the phone with an absolute stranger and kind of engage that. So we want to avoid that. Now, on the in fact, let's call this trap. Okay? Because this is like, nobody really wants to get caught in it. They feel like it's a trap. If I come on the phone, like they're going to try to sell me something. Let's totally avoid that, right? Now, on the bottom, let's say easy to consume but low desire, I would say something like an ebook. So, is it easy to consume? Absolutely, right? It's a 30-page PDF or a 40-page PDF, no problem. They can consume it, but do they want it? Like, I don't know about you, but I don't even know the last time I read an ebook. Like, if someone just came up to me and says, hey, I have this 70-page ebook, why don't you take a read at it? Obviously, that's not something that we want to do. So I will call this one, crap. Okay? Now, on the high desire, but hard to execute, I think a video course can fit into that. And so I know a lot of people in the marketplace right now have a 3 or a 4-part video course. Now, is it high desire? Yes, a lot of people want to consume some really good content via videos. And so there's high desire there, but is it hard to consume? Yeah, because if it's 3 or 4 or 5 videos long, dispersed over, 3 or 4 or 5 days, well then, yeah, the consume rate, it makes it very difficult because a lot of people, again, want micro content. So we'll call this gap. Right, it fills a gap and it takes a long time and it's high desire, but it's hard to consume. Now, in the top right corner with high desire and easy to consume, here's where we put what I call, the cheat sheet, right, the blueprint, the template, and here's what I would say about that, snap, right, because it just, you can consume it in a snap and it's high desire and all that. So, I mean, here's really the goal. We want to start all of our lead magnets with a snap, right? A cheat sheet, a blueprint, a template, and then potentially after we've warmed them up, take them to a trap, right? A strategy session or an enrollment call that brings them into something. If they don't, potentially get on the strategy session right away, well, then we can take them to a gap, right? To fill the gap between snap and trap. And at all costs, we want to stay away from the crap. Okay? So I hope that makes sense. So what's the takeaway with this then? Like, here's what I would say. Essentially, we're looking at a 1 to 5 pages maximum, preferably in a PDF format that that can easily be downloaded. Now, this is a very important key, that it can be downloaded. I'm going to show you why in just a second in one of the later modules that we're going to when we talk about setting up the lander. But the idea is essentially 1 to 5 page max PDF that can be downloaded. Now, I do also want to throw this out there and say that you may want to have, or you probably should have, more than one magnet. Okay, and those magnets could take on various forms. So maybe you can have like one blueprint and one template, or one template and one cheat sheet, and maybe a 4-part video series if that makes sense to you. And you do want to have the strategy sessions, and you do want to have these various types of magnets, because the reality is that different people consume information in different modalities, and so we want to always stay top of mind, and we always kind of want to keep that in mind and offer different things to different people. So I hope that makes sense there. Remember, different modalities are good for different ideas or different concepts. So videos, for example, are really good for building trust. Because when you can get in front of a camera and they can see your face and they can see your eyes and they can hear your voice and understand your personality, that's great for building trust. Cheat sheets are really good for high consumption and high value. Right? So we want to think about this, and it all really depends on what you're most comfortable with. If you are totally not comfortable with video, then you don't want to do video, right? If you're totally not comfortable with, let's say, like a webinar, then maybe you don't want to do a webinar. So you also want to take into consideration what you're comfortable with. But what I will say is for today's training, and to start immediately, what you probably want to do is start with a 1 to 5 page PDF in the form of a cheat sheet, in the form of a blueprint, or in the form of a template. Okay? So a 1 to 5 page PDF in the form of a cheat sheet, a blueprint, or a template. Now, key principle number 4 as we come into the home stretch here is, what is the framework that this PDF, cheat sheet, blueprint, template should take? So I'm going to walk you through very briefly a 4-step that you can use to outline every kind of magnet PDF cheat sheet that we're going to discuss from here forward. So step number 1 in your framework is the intro. Okay, step number 1 is the intro, and the intro essentially covers who you are and what you do. I mean, it's very simple, and you want to put this right in the introduction of your PDF, blueprint, or template, or cheat sheet, right? So it could sound something like, hi, my name is John, and I help startup tech CEOs properly craft their pitch so that they can get venture funding from venture capitalists. Okay, so like really a one-liner that says, this is who I am and this is what I do. Again, for example here, hi, my name is John, and I help startup tech CEOs properly craft their pitch so they can get venture funding from venture capitalists as they need it. So that's the intro. Secondly is the setup. Right? So after you give an intro, now you want to give the setup. This blank, so this blueprint, this cheat sheet, this template will help you X so you can Y. So this is a setup. This psychologically in their mind tells them what is going to happen and what is going to come from this magnet. This cheat sheet, blueprint, template will help you X so that you can Y. So maybe in light of the example that we're referring to here, this blueprint will help you restructure your pitch in such a way to be more appealing so that you can demand the funds that you need from venture capitalists. Right? I hope you're following. So this, whatever it is, call it what it is, blueprint, template, cheat sheet, will help you perform X so that you can Y. All right? So we'll help you perform the result so that you can get X benefit. So first you have the intro, who you are, what you do. Then you have the setup. This is what I do, and it will help you do X so that you can Y. And then thirdly is really the content or the meat of the template or of the blueprint or the cheat sheet, right? This is your meat. So here's where you're going to list your methods. You're going to give your lists. You're going to give the meat of the content. So in this case, in the example that I'm giving you here, point number one, I show you how as a tech CEO, you can move from left to right brain languaging, because VCs always invest based on emotion, not on logic. So you want to move from left brain function to right brain languaging, right? I'll also show you the right order to set up your pitch deck. So again, this is just the content or the meat of the actual PDF there, or the magnet. And then thirdly, so once you have the intro, then you have the setup, then you've given your content, and again, this is all over 1 to 5 pages maximum. You always want to end with a call to action, a CTA. So you want to end with a call to action. And this is essentially, here's what you do next, right? So if what you want them to do next is to book a strategy session with you, then you say, here's what you need to do next. You need to click this link and book your time to get on a call with me so we can discuss your business and I can provide XYZ for you. Or let's say your next call to action is, here's what I want you to do next. Click on this link and it'll take you to an advanced level video training that lasts about 14 minutes long that I want you to see. Or I want you to sign up for this at this website, or enroll in a webinar over here. So whatever it is that your next step is, your call to action here is what you want them to do next. And you always want to include this in the bottom of your cheat sheets. So I like to word it by saying something like, hey, if you like that information, I have this in-depth training video that goes into much more detail. All you got to do is go to www.website.com and it will take you straight to it. Okay? And again, that could be get on a video, watch a webinar, or enroll in a webinar, or hop on a call with me, whatever it be. Okay? Now, what I do want to important or emphasize here is the importance of design. Now, if your PDF looks like crap, that is the perception that you are bringing off to your marketplace. And that is the last thing that you want. You don't want people to have a perception that you are not an expert and you're not elegant in your marketplace. So I would consider going to something like Fiverr.com, or if you have an in-house designer or somebody you know who can pretty up the PDF, then that would be excellent. So you may want to have some graphics or charts or fill in the blanks or some images or any supporting kind of creatives that can help with just the content. Now, that could be different for different niches, but essentially this is your first impression to the marketplace, so it is highly important that you provide elegance and you properly represent your brand through that. So this is your magnet framework. So we're going to let's draw 3 little circles here, 3 little overlapping circles, and let's do this in black. So first is your intro or setup, remember, right? Secondly is your content or the meat of your magnet. And third is the call to action. Okay? So your intro, your setup, your content, and then your call to action. Now, what this does here is create likability, right? When you have a good intro and a good setup that leads to content, it's going to create likability. This here is going to create authority and engagement, right? Because good content followed by a call to action creates authority. Remember, education creates authority and engagement. And this here, sorry, that's a little messy there, but this here creates consistency. And one of Cialdini's primary triggers of influence is consistency. When somebody takes an action, and in this case it's a call to action where you're telling them to go somewhere, when someone takes an action, their brain is wired to continue to take supporting actions. So if you here say, click on this link to watch this video, then they'll watch a video, and then if you provide instruction in the video to say, well, now I want you to click on this button and order this, there's consistency there. So this is what I call the magnet framework. You want to start with your intro, your setup, which creates likability, moves into content. Content moves into your CTA, which creates authority and engagement, and that CTA creates consistency. let's do a quick review, right? Because we're essentially towards the end of the training there. I know this was a lot of concepts here that you can take away. So I briefly, quickly here want to go over review of how to kind of structure this whole thing. So let me just bring these images back. First is what we call the structure box, where we're going to sage the person, right? Remember, the magnet needs to sage, S-A-G-E, needs to be short, 4 to 7 minutes consumption, needs to be actionable, highly actionable, that someone can apply immediately into their life. It needs to get the person, G, towards closer to their goal. And then E, it needs to be easy to consume. So this is the SAGE structure box. Then on top of that, the triangle of trust, right? What does your magnet, or what should your magnet do? It should educate, because that provides authority or builds authority. It should engage, which creates trust. And it should inspire, which builds loyalty. So this is your triangle of trust, and every piece of content that you ever put out there, especially your magnet, should incorporate this triangle of trust. And then lastly, again, we're looking at the type of cheat sheet that you want to put out, and we've determined here, in fact, let me just kind of circle this so you really get it. We've determined that this is where you want to be, cheat sheet, blueprint, template. You want it to be a snap, and you probably want that to be a PDF. Whoops. And then lastly, how do we structure it? Well, first we start with an intro and a setup. Then we have the content, and then we have the call to action. So intro, setup, content, and call to action. Here are your to-do lists, and there's only really 3 important things you need to make note of here. Number 1, list your target market's greatest problems. Okay, because this is where your magnets are going to come from. So you want to know today, and as soon as you can, what is your target market's greatest problems? This is uber important here, right? So based on some of the market research that we've done and some of that stuff that we've talked about in the past, your target market's greatest problems. Now from that, number 2, we want to list out easy to apply solutions to those problems that you can help them with. Remember, this is our magnet, right? This is building up for our magnet. So A, once you know your target market's greatest problems, now 2, you want to list out some really easy to apply solutions to these problems that you specifically can help them with. And then once you know those 2 pieces of information, the third one is easy. Then you create your magnet or magnets, right? Plural. Because you don't necessarily just want one magnet, you want a bunch that you could put out there. So based on understanding your target's greatest problems, you're able to identify the easiest solutions that you could bring to your marketplace. And by identifying what those easiest solutions are to your marketplace, you can then begin to create your magnet based on everything that we talked about today around those solutions. And everybody's to-do list for this training is really to create at least one magnet that you could deploy out there. Because over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about how then to use Facebook to kind of deploy these things out to the marketplace. And it only makes sense to you once you've actually created them.